There's a fascinating painting which looks lovely called The Roses of Heliogabalus by Sir Lawrence Alma-Tadema, painted in 1888, so shortly after Gilbert and Sullivan started their partnership with Trial by Jury, and it perfectly encapsulates the duality of beauty and horror within at a dinner party. And Alma-Tadema captures this legendary story of how the Emperor Heliogabalus smothered his dinner guests under an avalanche of rose petals released from a trick ceiling. And initially delightful, the roses became suffocating, as a sort of like a good old days. There's a wonderful good old days performance with a fellow producing flowers out of nowhere, and they just go on and on and on. And that was what what happened here, except they went on and on and on, and eventually suffocated the guests. The contrast between the aesthetic appeal of the painting, its soft pink tones, the luxurious fabrics, the serene faces, and the underlying narrative of mass murder makes it profoundly disturbing. Elagabalus was known for his indulgence, his pranks, his excess, a teenage emperor whose antics scandalized Rome with his sexual fluidity, his love of luxury, his defiance of tradition. He was vilified by Roman historians who perhaps exaggerated his crimes. The Rose story was recorded in the Augustan history and blends myth and reality. Did he truly intend to harm, or was it an ill-judged act of hedonism, something that went wrong? And the ambiguity adds to the painting's tension. To the Victorian audience, the decadent opulence and the sensuality of the painting resonated with the period's fascination with moral excess, with decline, but the subtle criticism of Heliogabalus's tyranny was overshadowed by the image's sheer beauty. And Alma-Tadema's meticulous detail of the shimmering silks, the delicate roses, the golden sunlight, the studies that he did before for painting the finished article draw the viewer into a serene, almost heavenly banquet, and the sensory overload mirrors the experience of the victims trapped by beauty that's turned malevolent. And the painting's emotional heart lies in the desperate gazes of the guests. The woman clutching the pomegranate reaches out to the viewer, imploring the viewer for help. Her appeal disrupts the aesthetic detachment, demanding moral engagement. This orgy of violence and chaos, but it's insidious. It's insidious. Beauty as violence, power and cruelty. Heliogabalus, indifferent on his imperial dais, embodies absolute power devoid of empathy, and the painting's reception reveals the Victorian fascination with excess. Celebrating the painting with a party drenched in roses, as John Aird did, reflects the same oblivious indulgence that it actually criticises. It's a masterpiece of contrast, beauty and horror, indulgence and excess. And why am I talking about this? Really, because Reform UK is holding a £25,000 a head dinner designed to lure former Tory donors with promises of political renewal, relevance, and one imagines the finest dining. At Oswald's, the bastion of exclusivity, Nick Farage and Nick Candy are staging what can only be described as a political litmus test. Tickets ranging from 10,000 to 25,000, with 90 attendees expected, and they hope to raise £1 million in one evening. For context, that's roughly the cost of persuading 40 voters per council seat if they plan to spend like it's an American super PAC. The aim? To woo disgruntled Conservative donors who've lost faith in Kemi Badenoch's leadership but are still cautious about fully committing to reform. But, I mean, these people will be smothered with political opportunity, with political with political excess. As one unnamed attendee put it, they're paying the top tier price to see how the party treats its senior donors. It seems political allegiance now requires a concierge service, or at least a lot of flowers. Those who don't cough up will be treated to consumption, to excess, and to indulgence on a scale never imagined before. I think this image of the dinner of Heliogabalus is pertinent. The evening will also test Farage's ability to unite these two seemingly irreconcilable camps: a die-hard reformer and the former Tories nostalgic for the party's golden years, for the flowers of success. While Farage has publicly ruled out a merger, whispers about uniting these two parties persist, especially as polling places Reform now just ahead of the Conservatives but still behind Labour, unless you look at the other spurious poll. But Farage's pitch to donors isn't without its challenges. Elon Musk, whose billions could turbocharge Reform, has recently expressed reservations about substantial donations because of his position, but that position may go very quickly. If Musk, a man known for buying entire social media platforms, hesitates, what does that say about Reform's allure? Nick Candy's appointment as Treasurer signals an aggressive funding drive, and with a promise to donate £1 million himself and raise 40 million, Candy brings his property market savvy into the political arena. However, where the property mogul logic translates into voter loyalty is quite another matter. And voter loyalty may not be enough with the first-past-the-post system. Candy and Farage are also planning a summer Reform festival, which promises thousands of paying attendees in a bid to energise their base. Think Glastonbury, but with fewer wellies. And more speeches on sovereignty. Fewer wellies, more. Well, I was going to make a rather rude joke there about vowels, but just find a different vowel in welly, as opposed to lots of mud caked on the outside. And for all its pageantry, Reform faces a monumental challenge this May, proving that its polling numbers translate into votes. Last year, Reform gained just 2 councillors, a figure barely worthy of a pub quiz. This time, they're eyeing the mayoral posts of like Greater Lincolnshire, fielding high-profile candidates, along with the middle finger spouting Andrea Jenkins, a former Tory MP, over-promoted and enshrined forever in a yellow dress, sticking a finger up. Whether Reform can achieve the electoral credibility remains a good question, and whether an expensive dinner party experiment will work, converting donor dollars into grassroots success, trying to perform some sort of American promotion exercise. It's a far more elusive feat than a one-night stand in Mayfair. I don't know whether Andrea Jenkins will be on hand to demonstrate her capacity, finger or no finger. The event is more than a fundraiser. It's a litmus test for Reform UK's viability with the big boys. Farage and Candy are gambling that the allure of an exclusive finger bowl in the to be shared with Mr. Farage himself could spell a Tory rebellion to fill their coffers and their ballot boxes. And the point is, it's got nothing to do with the allure of Farage. It's to do with the run for the exit at the sight of Kemi Badenoch struggling week after week at the ballot box. I don't know whether Reform can be turned into a genuine political force or merely an amusing footnote in British politics, something whipped up by Fanny Craddock. But for now, the price of entry is steep, and so are the stakes.